welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be all about the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette. Is this palette that new in the universe? It is not. It's new-ish. However, I purchased this right on launch day and I've been hanging on to it for a while. I've been playing around with this palette. So today's video is not going to be a first impression. I've been trying this out for quite some time, like I mentioned, and I'm going to be showing you 5 looks that I did with this palette. Technically, I used it today, so there's 6 looks, just a little bit of a bonus, but I didn't film it. And then I'm just going to be talking about my thoughts, whether I think it's worth it, the formula, etc. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love it if you stuck around. But with all that, let's just get started going over these eyeshadow looks. All right, so actually, before we get into the looks, I am just going to show you the palette really quick. I'm not gonna go over details or swatches. I think that would just be a waste of my time. It is all over the internet. I really want to just make this an inspiration video if you're maybe struggling putting looks together with this palette, but this is what it looks like. And I knew immediately I was gonna get this palette. This is pretty much a perfect palette in terms of color story for me. I love these tones. You have a little bit of pinks over here, but mostly you have like these cool tone browns. Really, really just love the color story. And once I saw this palette sneak peeked, I actually decluttered my Biba. Now the Biba palette, while it was a neutral palette, it just wasn't my favorite. I never really reached for that palette anyways, so I was fine decluttering it to someone who was maybe going to get more use out of it. And I was hoping that this would replace it. Now, I was going to actually do a 5 looks with the I Need a Nude and then 5 looks with the Xenon palette, put them together in one video, but I'm actually thinking that it's going to be too long of a video, so I'm going to split them up. So today's video, which is Sunday that you're seeing this, is going to be all about I Need a Nude, but just know that on Tuesday, the next time I upload, will be all about the Xenon palette, 5 looks with that palette in case you're struggling to get looks and inspiration with that palette as well. Enough just chatter, let's get started with the first look. For the first look, I really wanted to just play with those taupes, so I started with mesh and put that just all over the lid, kind of just set the concealer that I had on my lid. I did not go in with any kind of primer, just my concealer from when I used that under my eyes. So I'm taking mesh all over the lid as well as on the lower lash line, and then going in to deepen it up with Tender. So I'm not really putting that all over my lid, more just kind of in the outer corner, kind of deepening up my crease just a little bit, trying to add some definition and really enhance my crease due to my eye shape. Then of course, just going in and applying it to my lower lash line while I had that shadow on my brush there. Afterwards, I took the shade Silhouette on a pencil brush, and I really, instead of deepening up the outer corner, kind of wanted to do a smoky liner type of moment. This was actually my first time trying this technique, and I learned some things. You'll see that in the Xenon video coming up next. I learned from my mistakes. I just used too much of a fluffy brush right off the bat here, but I'm applying that on the upper lid as well as the lower lash line, and I took a fluffier brush after that to try and just diffuse it, but I had already taken too big of a brush the first time, so it was a little bit harder than I anticipated. Then onto the shimmers. Filigree is the darkest shimmer in this palette, so I took that and applied it to the outer corners of my eyes and really just focused it on the outer half. And I took Travertine on the inner portion of my lid to just try to bring some light more to the inner part. And then I'm just gonna spend some time blending the 2 shimmers together. Afterwards, going back in with Silhouette to just kind of re-intensify that blown out liner look, but I used more of the just fluffier brush. Lastly, I'm just taking Mia and applying that to the inner corner. This is really the only inner corner highlight shade I would say is in the palette. Maybe the only con I would have against this palette is that that's really the only shade I would put in the inner corner. And that completes look number 1, the finished look. Now for look number 2, I kind of wanted to play with more of the pinky tones in here. So I took Wit and I'm applying that just in my crease. I applied that with a smaller blending brush just to really place it where I wanted. And then I took a fluffier brush with no product to just diffuse that out. I'm also applying Wit to the bottom lash line. Then I took the deeper kind of pinky shade in there, which is Vogue, and just kind of going over the spots that I put that in to deepen it up. I'm putting it just a little bit lower so you can kind of have like a good blend, applying it to the top and lower lash line. I'm a pretty consistent person, deepening up even more with Tender. Tender might be one of my favorite shades in this palette. I do like it a lot. It's just the perfect deepening tone without being too dark, and you can really use it to contour. Then I just took Muse. I did not spray it. I did not use glitter primer, only my finger, and I put that all over the lid. I was tapping at first, but then you'll see that I kind of just swipe with my finger, which I do think provides better payoff. And again, taking Mia for the inner corner to just brighten up that inner corner. Kind of already said my thoughts on that, on how I just wish there was another more just champagne shade. And then I'm taking the shade Silhouette and just lining my top lash line. I don't want it too thick, just to really add some definition because this is a lighter look, so to say. So I do want a little bit more definition on the upper and lower lash line. But then that completes look number 2. It was a pretty quick, easy, simple, just out the door look. None of these looks really took me that much time at all from start to finish. Look number 3, I did want to do an all matte look because I know, everyone loves Natasha Denona shimmers, including myself, but I wanted to try an all matte look, see how I liked it. So first I took the shade Mesh and just really applied that to the crease area. Again, just placing it where I want on a smaller brush, blending it out with a larger, fluffier blending brush. Then taking the shade Stone, kind of deepening up the outer corner here, really trying to build depth, going a little bit lower. And I am taking it a little bit further into the lid than I normally would if I was applying a shimmer, since this is an all matte look. Then taking Silhouette to deepen it up further, applying a smaller amount, just really on the outer corner. I'm trying to be careful with this shade because it does build up fast, but luckily you can start small and kind of work with it to not get so much pigment right off the bat there. Then I'm taking the shade Fair and I'm going to apply that on about 2/3 of the inner lid to really just have like this matte look and kind of really sculpt my eye, I guess is what I was trying. I don't do a lot of all matte looks, so I'm a little bit rusty. Going back in then to re-intensify with Silhouette, just to kind of have it come back since I used Fair. Then I took Mesh and I'm just trying to diffuse out that crease area, have it come up a little bit higher. I can struggle with how high my eyeshadow goes since my lids are a little bit smaller, but I have a lot of real estate between my lid and my brow. Of course, I'm going to take Silhouette because it's the easiest shade to use as liner and just again line the top lash line. I went in with a smaller brush this time and then took a pencil brush to smudge it out, which worked a lot better than it did in look number 1. But then this is the completed look for look number 3. It wasn't perfect. I wish that maybe I had used a concealer before going in with Fair to really brighten it up, but that's what I ended up with for look number 3. For look number 4, I kind of wanted to mix the taupey browns with the pinks. So I took the shade Stone. I'm applying that all over my crease area with just a fluffy blending brush. I'm not being too precise. Applying that on the upper and lower lid. So that way I can just get be over with that shade and not have to go back into my lower lash line. Then I'm taking Vague, which is more of that pinky tone, and I'm using that to deepen up my outer corner. And I'm using a pencil brush to really just place it right where I want it, because I kind of just want like a little peak of pink, so to say, instead of just like a lot of pink, to kind of make it a little bit different and not sticking with just pinks or just browns together. And I'm applying that to the upper and lower lash line. Afterwards, I'm taking the shade Fair to just kind of diffuse the crease a little bit. I guess I probably at the moment didn't think that it was blended out enough, so that's what I'm doing with just a big fluffy blending brush. Then I'm taking the shade Ella, one of the shimmers I haven't used yet, and I'm going in on the outer corner. This one's maybe not like my favorite shimmer in the palette, only because of the shade, and then I'm going to take Whisper and apply that to the inner corner. I do like this shade. It's much, much brighter, but we'll get into my thoughts on just the different shades at the end here once we go over all the looks. Going back in with the shade Vague, I'm just kind of re-intensifying where I had that on the outer corner, just because it probably blended away a little bit from my finger. And I did take the shade Sheen to apply that to my inner corner, but I really didn't like it as much as Mia. It worked okay, but I don't want to sound like a broken record and talk about my thoughts on the inner corner highlight. And of course, because that's who I am, I'm taking Silhouette and lining the upper lash line. I will probably go in and do the lower lash line. Yes, I will, to just add a little bit of definition. It's definitely a look that I like. I tried to wing it out just a little bit to add a little bit more interest, but that completes look number 4. To the 5th and final look. Thank you if you've stuck this far. My eyes were tired by this point. So I took the shade Mesh, and originally I was going to place it in the crease, just like I normally do with every single look that I've done. However, I kind of decided in the moment to do a halo eye. I wanted to do something a little bit more dark and sultry, so I'm going to take the shade Mesh, apply it to the inner and outer corner, and I'm really going to start to build up those shades. So then I'm taking the shade Tender, applying that right on top on the outer and inner corner, trying to leave the middle part of my lid as blank as possible. There's a lot of just building and blending that you have to do when you're doing a halo eye. And then I'm taking the shade Silhouette to, again, just build upon that shade. I'm starting to lose my halo just a little bit in the center of the lid, but that's okay. I just have smaller eyelids, so that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I'm adding that to the lower lash line. My eyes were just really watery and tired at this point, so it didn't turn out the best. You can really see in that corner there. That's why I'm trying to like pat and blend it out, because my eyes just were not having it. However, I figured it was best to just include this look so you could get the idea of what I did. I took the shade Delilah because that was the lash shimmer I needed to use in the palette, and I'm applying that in the center of the lid. Again, kind of just like that matte look. I wish that I had maybe used a concealer to really make it pop, or sprayed my brush, but that is the 5th and final look. All right, so now that we've gone over all the looks, I do just want to briefly touch on my thoughts of this palette. I did kind of insinuate in the beginning of this that I really, really love this palette. I'm glad that it lived up to my expectations when I saw it online. It really, really did. My only just con, and I'm really not even calling it a con, is that I wish there was another highlight inner corner shade other than this Mia shade, but there's at least one, so I'm fine with it, and I can always go in with the highlighter that I'm using on my face. It's no big deal. If I had to like reach into another palette, like if Silhouette wasn't here and I had to reach into another palette, that would irritate me more. It's workable, and I think that Natasha Denona did the best color story she could with a limited number of shades. If there was another row, then maybe I would be a little bit harsher. Other than that, you know, every single matte in here performed beautifully. I threw away the box already. My dogs destroyed that box weeks ago, so I'm not sure which ones are creamy mattes. I don't have any issues with Natasha Denona's creamy mattes. I find them to be very easy to work with, actually. I find that they build really nicely on top of each other, and I actually think that it's like a beginner-friendly formula because it's so buildable. With the shimmers, I do know that there are quite a few different types of shimmers in this palette. And what I've discovered between playing with this palette and playing with the Xenon palette is that you do need to help out the shimmers. And I think that's because she really is trying to go for these more sparkly shimmers. Like, you have Sheen here, which is very pretty. Delilah, which is, these are my two favorite shimmers, by the way, in case you're just wondering. And they are these really wet, intense looking sparkle shimmer. However, I'm finding that I need to spray my brush, use NYX glitter primer, or just really have something to grip to it. Just using my finger is not going to give it the impact that personally I'm looking for. Maybe the impact is great for you and you love it, but I do think that they could use just a little bit of extra help, and that just is really going to depend on if that's something that you personally like to do or not. I don't really like spraying my brushes, and it's not that I don't like the effect, it's more just that I'm kind of lazy and I haven't gotten into the habit of doing that, so it's not something that I'm used to. Today I used the glitter primer, and that is much easier for me than spraying a brush. So in today's look, I used, what did I do? I used the shade Mesh and Stone, and then I wanted to use, no, I didn't. I used Mesh and Wit, that's what I did, and then I used Sheen all over the lid, and I used Silhouette to line with a little bit of a baby wing. Nothing really crazy. You can get really easy, simple, sophisticated looks. That's what I love about this, is that I feel like the looks you get kind of look like you spent some time with your eyeshadow. Of course, all the video clips you just saw were, what, about 1.5 to 2 minutes? And I would say unedited, those clips, it took me between 12 to 16 minutes from start to finish to do any of those eye looks. So you can do pretty quick looks with this, and I'm doing it sitting down. I'm not used to doing my makeup sitting down. I could do it much, much faster in maybe 8 minutes or so, even if I was standing up doing my makeup how I'm used to. So overall, very happy with this palette. Dare I say that this might be my favorite Natasha Denona palette. I did do a video last year ranking all my Natasha Denona palettes. I'll link that video up above. And I gave the #1 spot, I believe, to the Glam palette. And the Glam palette is a fantastic palette. I also very much enjoy that palette, but this might beat it out. I might have to do an updated ranking maybe sometime early next year. I just think that Natasha Denona really nailed all of the undertones in these colors. I wish that I was more articulate, but there's something about just the undertones, the shades of these mattes specifically, that are just perfect. Now, you have to love these shades. I think if you don't love these shades, Mesh, Stone, and Tender probably look very similar to you, but for me, they serve very different purposes, and I very much like Stone here is almost like a crease contour shade. I've used it a lot as that, really, almost to make my eyes look a little bit more deep set, because my eyes are a little bit more hooded, and I feel like it gives more definition to my eyelid. And I really like it for that. I think that this is just a fantastic, fantastic palette. I do not regret this purchase at all. I do have an affiliate code with Natasha Denona. It's just Melissa, but FYI, like, anyone can sign up for Natasha Denona's affiliate program. If you also do videos, or you just really love Natasha Denona, recommend it to your friends, sign up for their affiliate program so you can get money back if someone makes a purchase through your link. I think that that's really great, but I am excited to just pull this out all the time. I have no bad things to say about this, none, other than the inner corner, but really, not a big deal to me. Now, the very last thing, because I'm sure that this video is starting to get a little bit longer than I wanted, is I got my Gloss Gods palette in the mail literally today. I just unboxed it before this video, and I purchased the First Gal on Jupiter palette. And when I saw this, I haven't even opened it yet. When I saw this palette, it kind of gave me I Need a Nude vibes. So I really just wanted to show you in person, except that might have been a waste because it really is not similar at all. I kind of thought it was going to be much more similar based on the photos, but no, it's not. This is a little bit more dark and sultry. This one's a lot more lighter, brighter. Personally, I like more of a palette like this. I will, of course, be doing a video on this. I bought another palette from Gloss Gods as well, but this is definitely darker. Like these two shades, I think is kind of what was giving me I Need a Nude vibes, but the overall just vibe of this is completely different. So if you're curious about the two, then you know that they're different enough if you like these kinds of tones. But I think that's where I'm going to leave you all. You'll have to let me know down below. Did you already pick up this palette? I don't think that my opinion's an unpopular one. I know that this has been out for a while, but I was gonna do a video on it anyways, regardless of it being out for a while. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below which look was your favorite. I think for me, it was either 2 or 4. But I don't want to brag. My looks for the Xenon palette that are coming up, I actually really enjoyed them. So let me know your favorite look down below, all your thoughts on this palette. But this is where I'm officially going to leave you. I hope you're having a good one, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.